Yeah. But it's just set for a taller person.
There's a mic too.
So here's the mark.
Oh.
Stand there and you just press. Okay.
No, Malela, it hasn't started.
I'm going to start webinar now.
So it's going to have your presentation on the screen, and then at the top it's going to have your picture.
All right, you're up. You're left.
Yeah, no, that's not the one who will come first. It is the resilient presentation. Can we go on the yeah. Not yet. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, welcome to everybody at COP26. So this is the first site event we are organizing, including presentations from Africa and Southern America, specifically Brazil. So as you know, a lot of site events are dedicated to the global warming, climate change globally. So coming from Africa and South America, we will share with the COP community what climate trends and impacts we have across Africa, and also one presentation on the current status of implementation of national frameworks for climate services in Africa, the case of Côte d'Ivoire. So these presentations are expected to shed some light on what the climate trends are at the regional and national level, what their impacts are, and then the tools that different regions, including South America, are developing, which can be useful for Africa. So we'll start with the first presentation on the geospatial tools for climate change monitoring from our colleagues from Brazil. Sir, you have the floor. You introduce yourself and then you start the presentation. Thank you. Yes. Yes. It's showing the notes. It's not showing the presentation. It's showing that screen. That's what you foresee. Go back where you were and then open. Yeah. And then save.
And now?
Put on
No.
full screen.
How does it look on YouTube?
I don't know. Full screen. Full screen. No. But in full screen, you no longer see this. So go on slideshow. I have full screen somewhere. Now it's okay. It's okay. Okay, so just leave it at that and then just go. Not on the presentation mode. We need to show the presentation mode as well. She's not able to do it and I cannot see. So you just scroll down like this and then continue. But it's going to show this screen. It's not on the presentation mode. Yes, but how will we do it? My eyes are not seeing the. Just let us.
I know to change it. I know where it's to show.
Yeah. Okay. Tá, deixa assim, bota desse assim.
Okay. Hello, my name is Luis Marchiori. I'm CEO from Codex, and I'm going to start this panel presenting the geospatial tools to slow down climate change. So I'm just going to start with a small video when I'm going to introduce to our company. Codex is a corporation that operates in the fields of geotechnology, electricity, agribusiness, sanitation, and utilities, with solutions aimed to provide digital transformation for a sustainable development. We develop technical systems for sustainability with sophisticated solutions for regulation, strategic management operations, efficiency, and decision support system. Our specialists work to facilitate and optimize the processes of companies in the public and private sectors in order to ensure safety and efficiency in their respective segments. Codex is based on sustainability and is directly linked to ESG practices, maintaining its environmental, social, and corporate governance responsibility. We seek data-driven innovation, and we use the latest technology to ensure solutions that benefit the environment and social as a whole. So what about geospatial tools? People are talking about climate change, but how can you really understand it? We need tools to measure it, to know where it's happening, what and who is going to be affected. For this reason, geospatial technology are the tools we need to do that. The two geospatial fields we're going to explore today are the remote sensing throughout the use of satellite imagery and the geographic information systems. These are some of the clients that we have in Brazil that we've deployed solutions using these geospatial technologies. I'm going to pinpoint some of these projects that shows the capabilities of these technologies. The first step that we can talk about is gathering data. So I'm going to present as a strategic planning instrument. And why this is important? Because if you want to analyze, to make decisions, to have any insights, we need data. And we need to know what's on the ground, what is changing, and who we're going to affect. Otherwise, it's just a pointless speech. The first project I'm going to present is the spatial data infrastructure. The spatial data infrastructure is a very helpful kind of project that allows us to fully understand what's on the ground, what is changing. It gathers data from several institutions. And on these videos that I'm playing, we can see the website, portal, the dashboards where we develop it, and we use the Esri technology. So we can make the data available to the several layers of information available for the public. At these videos, we can see the developments such as the website, the portal, story maps, the geographic information system, and some customized application for the climate change. We can see on this here on the bottom in the middle, we can see how the temperature is behaving throughout the years. And just the last one is about the living atlas that's on the Esri platform that give us a lot of information from other sources. The next project I would like to show is the Observatory. The infrastructure Observatory is a data aggregation platform which brings historical data, investment goals, and macro and sector levels of capital stock. It also presents international comparisons, a pipeline of national infrastructure projects, and a management and governance hub for international reference. In Brazil, this is the first initiative to do so, and has the intention to attract more investments to the country infrastructure. This project has financed by the Inter-American Development Bank. The second step is monitoring. After we start gathering data, we need to keep monitoring the region, our country, our planet. Every change we can observe is relevant in our fight against the climate change. This project could be classified as a big data, especially because it used more than 5,000 climate charts of 15 weather variables every hour over a 30 years period. Using weather models and weather stations data, we can analyze data with much more details. In this example, we can see the Tocantins state in Brazil. Which has a tropical climate. In this particular project, we can see the rain distribution during the year, showing that in the South Hemisphere winter, we have almost no rain at all. When we analyze the temperature here, we can see that in the last 30 years, the average temperature of the area increased by 1 degree. I'm just finishing. that shows the temperature that increased in 1 degree. Okay, the next project I'm going to show is the environmental monitoring. Geospatial tools are being used by private companies to monitor the environment. And you can use satellite imagery, such as the Maxar imagery, to monitor. And this concession of roads can be monitored for any illegal occupation or deforestation. And you can gather in these geographic information systems all kinds of information, like these street views images. Then we can see if the deforestation is happening almost real time. This is a project that shows the deforestation monitoring. The deforestation monitoring have a special place in our portfolio. Brazilian Amazon forest is so big that only with remote sensing that authorities could have the capabilities to reduce illegal deforestation. For monitoring, it's needed as many images, as many sensors, as many data as we can. We can see on this top imagery an area that show different images from different sensors with a 2-month difference. We can see the difference in the illegal deforestation. It's here on the first video. This is only 2-month difference. The Amazon is so big that the authorities can't have a good monitoring. So that's why it's so important. You can see just a lot of difference between the two images. And after we gather data and after we start monitoring, it's time to understand. And we understand which are the consequences, and it's time to plan a sustainable future and to respond to natural disasters associated with climate change. Once we realize the climate is changing, we need to provide the public agent with tools to reduce response time and the manual procedures when a natural disaster strikes. Time is vital in minimize damage and save lives. Here we can see a dashboards that help tracking who is affected and the humanitarian help available to be sent to the disaster location. The lower videos show how a disaster is registered in the system, and it's followed real time by the headquarters of the operation. This project also compiles thousands of events, almost 30 years, of a structured database, provides the capability to prepare for a new natural disasters, and also provide the system based on the every field works to make easier and quicker the insertion of new events to the system. The zoning is a kind of project that's very interesting because it's a tool that helps a never-ending problem: where to build, where to invest. Countries need to keep growing, and we always analyze, and we can analyze and decide where are the smaller impact areas. How can we build a sustainable government plan? Which regions are capable to receive more investments? Every environmental and ecological zoning provides decision-making attributes to a multivariable geographic processing. That last image shows which areas are more suitable for agriculture and for industries, using all these kinds of multivariable analysis. And the ESG planning is this. I talked earlier about the observatory, but I return just to end this presentation. As the central objective of the observatory is to promote the development of sustainable infrastructure in the country. with a view to attract investments through the implementation of a framework proposed by the Inter-American Development Bank. Based on the pilot implemented in Mexico, a methodology was developed to evaluate the sustainability attributes of infrastructure projects in the Brazilian context. Of the 66 sustainability attributes proposed by the Inter-American Development Bank, 57 are included in Brazil's methodology. The methodology evaluates projects through their life cycle, considering 4 dimensions: economic, financial, environmental and climate resilience, social, and institutional and governance. And finally, just worth noting that Brazil methodology is aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, with the Paris Agreement, and with the G20 Principles for Quality in Infrastructure Investments, with the Blue Dot Network, an investment certification initiative supported by the OECD, and with the Multilateral Development Bank Infrastructure Platform, which aggregates the 16 common attributes of infrastructure sustainability assessed by multilateral development banks. So just to finish, the strategic planning instrument, what we can see from what I presented is that after we gather data and start monitoring, we create the conditions to understand, plan, and respond to the change. And the most interesting thing is that when you do these steps, we continue to generate data in a loop that keeps increasing its quality of the strategic planning instruments indefinitely. So as much data we generate, the better the planning keep going. And just to finish, we need to gather data and understand the change in land use, because land use change leads to weather change. Weather change leads to climate change. Climate change raises intensity of natural disasters. Raising intensity in natural disasters impact more people and cost more. Geospatial tools tracks all these steps and gives the opportunity to change the outcome. Thank you.
Display settings, right? Where are you? Is this the one? How do you mirror it, Peter? Please help.
I don't think. No, that's the display on the screen of the computer.
I think it looks
Yeah, just open the presentation, and I think last time it works. You know, click here, and then
Do you have videos? See, it's not
Yeah.
changing there.
no, focus on the rest. Oh, wait. Yeah, yeah.
Still nothing.
Okay, that's all. Good. Okay, it's moving online. Okay. Okay, let us move to the second presentation on climate trends and impacts in Africa by Dr. Romeo Kurunziza from the African Center of Meteorological Applications for Development. Mr. Kurunziza, you have the floor.
Thank you for Deja for introducing me. As it was already said, my name is Romeo Sostene Nkurunziza. I work for NOCAP and I'm deployed to ACMAD. Those who have had the chance to be here had been seeing posters around people campaigning for this climate change. And the call was they are counting on us people to do something. And then I felt concerned. Today, I'm going to do this presentation on temperature and precipitation trends on extremes, impact of observed trend. Now, before I move on, ACMAD has got a mission and a vision. The mission of ACMAD is a Continental Weather and Climate Watch Center, and is an institution of excellence for the application of meteorology for development. Its vision is a world-class operational continental center providing weather and climate services for sustainable development of Africa. Now, looking at the trends of observed in the past 30 years, as you can see, there has been Africa warms faster than the globe. North of Africa has the highest warming rate, which is around 40 degrees per century during the last 30 years, and is the first over the continent. Now, the other sign that is showing that the climate is changing is the rapid shrinking of the glacier in East Africa, which is expected to melt entirely in the near future. This signals the threat of imminent and irreversible changes of the Earth system. Now, I've been saying the warming of Africa land surface. This shows the land air temperature. As you can see, in the last 40 years, we can see the trends. The rate of warming was not higher in the last 20 years. As you can see in the blue, the trend was negative. And then when you look at the recent 30 years, it has increased. When it was hot, it gets hotter. When it was warm, it gets warmer, which shows the importance of being able to predict and be resilient to anything that is going to happen in the future. This I was talking about land. This is about sea. As you can see also, in the last 40 years, the sea temperature was cold, but not as much as in the past 20 years. And then this play a crucial role on the weather and the climate we are having over Africa. I was talking about precipitation. Sorry, I was talking about temperature. Now this is precipitation. As you can see, from 1981 to 2020, there has been an increase in precipitation and a decrease. But when you zoom in, you can notice that there is a multi-decade decadal variability over area with a significant trend. So as a scientist, when we plot this map and show it to the public, we need to make sure we zoom in to make sure we are showing the right trends. Again, as the temperature, as the weather, as temperature, as precipitation changes, it changes even the heat. As you can see here, the extreme heat. Since 1997 until 2020, you can see a growing trend in the extreme heat, which is showing 2016 was the highest to record extreme temperature. On right, you can also see the precipitation, the extreme precipitation has been increasing. We try to show whether that year was El Nino, La Nino, or was neutral. Both of them shows a growing trend in extreme daily frequency precipitation. Moving to extreme precipitation, as you can see, that's the record of one of the station in Niamey. If you look at the different years, how the floor of the Niamey station have been behaving, the average is showing in the black, and the 2020, 2021 is in red. You can see how crucial we need to ensure and be resilient to the future heavy precipitation. This is showing in action where the collapse of a part of this overlooking of Congo River in Brazzaville. That was 9th of January, where because of heavy precipitation, all the infrastructures, all the money they have invested into this has been turned to ash. Now, looking at the disasters, what are the disasters associated? Now, as we can see here, the number of reported disasters totaling 1,695 disasters, we can see the flood was the most dominant and it was followed by storm and drought. When we go to the reported economic loss in US billion, again attributed to such disasters, we can see that the storm has been cost Africa a lot, which was followed by flood and followed also by droughts. If we look at the number of reported deaths, we can see the drought has been the most cause of death all over Africa. So this is showing we have got a challenge ahead that need to be care of. We also showed how natural disasters and associated impact. This is a complement the previous one I was explaining. Then we started showing the data from 1990 to 2020. Now we found out that drought has affected more people than any other disaster. However, flood is the leading killer compared to other. So other disasters to be aware of are storms, extreme temperature, and wildfires. Now, when we are talking about all this climate change, all this changing, how do they affect our sustainable, our goal? How are they a speed bumper to achieving our sustainable goals? Now, whenever there is this CO2 concentration goes into atmosphere, it will interfere with the surface temperature. It will increase ocean heat content. It will reduce the glacier mass, extend sea level rise. That will affect global. If that will have an effect on the global circulation pattern, slow down the global thermoline circulation. It will also temper with jet stream, El Nino South Oscillation. This will have a we have high impact event. We increase the heat wave, cold wave, fires, droughts, flooding, marine heat wave, tropical storms, and coastal erosion. So the consequence of on this sustainable development is it means poverty will be rising, food insecurity, health issue, water scarcity, damaged infrastructures, rising inequality, displacement, ecosystem collapse, biodiversity loss, and the conflict. Now, we've been saying what's been happening, what's been observed, but there is a projection also. What can we expect in the future? Based on the projections on the reported in the IPCC 21, we have seen that the North Africa is projected to increase in the mean precipitation, increase in the fire weather conditions, decrease in the mean wind speed. It's also projected to increase in aridity and the meteorological, hydrological, agricultural, and ecological drought. In West Africa, we are expecting an increase in the mean wind speed, an increase in the frequency of very heavy precipitation, and the very temperature extreme, and the fluvial flooding. In West Africa, monsoon, where the shade is, we expect that an increase in the central Sahel and decrease over far western Sahel. That's increase in precipitation. The monsoon is projected to have a delayed onset and a delayed retreat. Over Central Africa, we are expecting an increase in heavy precipitation and the fluvial flooding. We also expect an increase in river flooding. In the Southern Africa, we are expecting an increase in the dryness from 1.5 degrees Celsius, higher confidence with increase in global warming. We are also expecting an increase in the mean wind speed, increase in fire weather conditions. On the other side of Africa, northeastern Africa, we are expecting a decrease in snow and the glaciers. We are expecting an increase in heavy precipitation, fluvial flooding, and a decrease in the meteorological drought if at the high emission scenario. In Southeastern Africa, we are expecting a projected increase in frequency or in intensity of heavy precipitation and the fluvial flooding. We are expecting a decrease in snow integration, an increase in average of tropical cyclone, wind speed, and associated heavy precipitation, and the proportion of category 4 to 5 tropical cyclones. In South Madagascar, I'm talking about, is projected to increase in meteorological drought from 1 degrees Celsius, higher confidence in global warming level, increase in agricultural and ecological droughts, types particularly at a high warming level. We are expecting an increase in heavy precipitation, fluvial flooding, an increase of average tropical cyclones, wind and wind speed associated with the heavy precipitation of the proportion category 4.5 tropical cyclones are expected to increase. At ACMAD, we do something about it. We after having analyzed all these problems, we sit down and we do something for policymakers. We call it impact-based seasonal forecasting and the response measures for disaster management plans update. It's called the brief for policy and the decision makers. based on a significant weather and the climate event update. Now, this is an example. It was valid from June to September 2021. As we can see, we showed the area with, for instance, the area with orange. We just announced, we just showed the hazard. We say below average precipitation very likely, onset delay, seasonal precipitation deficit, irregular distribution of precipitation during the season, and the drought situation very likely. Potential impact. And the potential impact, we say water shortage, decrease in crops yield, degradation of pasture, and rise in food price. We don't stop there. We propose the measures. The measures we propose is prioritize planting in low land area, promote drought crops, harvest precipitation to mitigate water shortage, and update the implementation of drought plan. On orange, we identify hazards that were above average precipitation very likely, onset delay and the seasonal precipitation deficit, irregular distribution of precipitation during the season, and the drought situation very likely. On a potential impact, we identify water shortage, decrease in crops, yield, degradation of pasture, and the rise in food price. The measures we propose is priority planting in lowland area, promote drought crops, harvest precipitation to mitigate water shortage, and update implementation of drought plan. On the green side, we identify the hazard above average precipitation very likely, moderate to heavy precipitation event leading to flood, landslide, erosion during the season. The potential impact we identified is outbreak of waterborne disease, damage to infrastructures. The measures we propose provide agrometeorological advice to farmers, prepare for heavy rain and flood, update and implement flood contingency plan, better management of water in reservoir and dams. As we said, because of the variability, the onset season, there is a tool at ACMAD where we monitor onset, what we call agriculture calendar update service. As you can see over there, and then we're gonna insist on that one. Even the next presentation, we go through it. But what I can say here, if you look at January to July in 2020, you can see that it's very, very different from January to July in 2021. In 2020, there was so many areas that there was a delay onset, but on July 2020, in 2021, there was many areas where the precipitation came early. So this showed the importance of precipitation variability, and the agriculture calendar is of the paramount for farmers to put their seed in the soil when it's the right time to do so. In summary, we've been saying many studies are indicating that African countries are likely to experience increase in exposure to extreme or high impact weather and the climate event to climate change, and there will be a development challenge. Every year, disasters related to climate anomaly, such as strong tropical cyclones, several storms, flood, extreme temperature, heat wave and drought, disruption onset, disruption and the withdrawal of the seasonal precipitation lead to loss of life and socio-economic impact in Africa. The extent of loss and the damage in the region is evident of a very limited climate resilience attribute. We should work hard to make sure we have got a bright future to be a resilient continent. Thank you.
Okay. So we have two additional presentations left. One highlighting the high impact weather forecasts at ACMAT, and a second on the implementation of National Framework for Climate Services, the case of Côte d'Ivoire.
mic? Okay, thank you. Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our side event. My name is Godfrey Mirimana. I am working at ACMAD, and my presentation is going to go follow with one of my colleagues, and I will focus on the high impact weather and the climate monitoring and the focusing to build resilience in Africa. This is also one of the major services delivered by African Center. And my presentation I will talk more about the policy brief, the service for policy brief for climate and for climate information, and also talk about the high impact forecasts, and show you our product development chain, and go also more deep on the case study for what will happen when they were observed during the 2020 and the 21. So I conclude my presentation by present you the perspective of ACMAD in terms of delivery for climate services information. Yeah, this is one of the major services we are delivering, Spatial, which is very useful for the policy brief. We call the policy brief for decision makers. This is, for example, a product we used on last year, November, where we predict a deficit of rainfall over major part of Madagascar. That information was available in October 2020. And our role was to advise the decision makers in order to take advantage or to plan or review their contingency plan or also update them. Later on, we do the same exercise, then we update that information. That's the product we produced in January. And you can see that the magnitude of deficit increasing over Madagascar. From March to June, we can see that there is a change of the scenarios, but still over Madagascar, there was still drought, the deficit of rainfall. This is due to the drivers on Indian Ocean, which predominate on that way, they force the climate. But the over area like South Tanzania, Mozambique, and Malawi, they got more rainfall during that period. But still, up to June this year, Madagascar experienced very drought, and they have even recorded in the media and the newspaper. So you can see that since October, that information was available. So decision makers should take advantage on that, either to plan or to review the contingency plan, even to twinning with countries to see where is the food so they can supply the vulnerable population. This is the one also we do for from June to September, which is going on. And those are the kind of the product which is available on our climate, on our website. And we do regularly at Continental Leader. And also know that ACMAD as African Regional Center, which is also mandate to work with the other centers, we contribute by within the Regional Climate Outlook Forum in order to building capacity for national meteorological services, in order to enhance the skills and also to develop such kind of product at national level. Then from the climate, we do also for the weather. When we talk about high impact forecasting, so then we are looking for at the short and the medium range at 3 days ahead, what will be happening. And for that, we are focusing only for moderate to heavy rainfall, which can cause floods or destruction damages. And this is the matrix we developed that we send from green to red. We go do that, we go through the guidance for WMO on high impacted weather forecast. So in order to generate such kind of map and also disseminate through our network, but also in case there is a red color on the map, we have to contact directly to National Met Service, which have the mandate at national level in order to emphasize or what we have been taken to do a warning. For us, we are just maintained from advisory watch, but for the early warning, that is for National Met Service, which have mandate at national level. We do also verification. That's the time to see what we predicted when the what we have been observed. And this is the kind of the maps we are producing every day and to see what we have been predicted versus for what we have observed. So then the layer will just show one case where you can see there is some red. Then we, in the observation map, we can see we have some threshold colors. The green means that's less than, it's light but from yellow, that's moderate. And the red, it's the where we recorded more than 50 millimeters for the last 24 hours, which can, we assume that can cause damages for also impact the lives for the population. So to develop all those kind for product, we have our chain of value. So when we started by weather climate watch, we do data collection, we develop development for information, then we deliver product services in order to build that resilience to communities. And our continental body are African Union, the REC, also the Red Cross, and the IFRC, and the OCHA regional offices where we interact for them, and also maintain that we are communicate every day and daily basis with National Met Services and also other regional climate centers of Africa, which has IPAC, SADC, and Central Africa. This is the case my colleague have shown you about what happened 2020 and what happened 21. That's the case we showed that we want to show you that over national level what's happened. You can see July 2020 and the July 21. From January to July, there is a big difference. You can see over Senegal, last year, they experienced the early onset. And that kind of information we deliver at early, at the start of the season. But you can see on, for this year, they experienced the late onset, which is in red. So means that those products is mandatory to farmers or other plan or decision maker in order to adapt the agriculture calendar. So then they can plan in advance, either they do replanting or also take some measurement to meet this delay or benefit for the early onset. So I want to talk about now the perspective for ACMAT. With the support from African Union and the UN United Disaster Risk Management, also the Office of Africa, with the support for Italian government through his Minister of Foreign Affairs, ACMAT is building now a continental multi-hazard advisory center. By which that by the end of this month, November, this center will be operational, and they will be based in our headquarters in Niamey. And this center will contribute in multi-hazard advisory messages and information. And it will not work this alone. There is a network. Those centers will be working with the network. There is a center will be based in ACMAT, that's what I show you. And there is also the situation room, which will be based at ICPAC, and then the situation room at African Union Commissioner in Addis Ababa. So they will link in order to communicate weather information, the climate, to Disaster Risk Management Authority in order to give them reliable information in real time. Those centers will work 7 days by 7 days, and there will be officers. We're going to work on it. So in order to monitor high impact weather and also issue warning, advisory, and the watch at different time scale. this is the project. We hope that by the end of this November, those 3 centers will be operational. So then we can communicate to our user in order to inform early enough about the disaster which may happen at the continental level, for ACMAD, then for regional level, which will be mandatory for ICPAC, and then communicate with the African Union, which should have the role to coordinate among of the partners and the Disaster Risk Management Authority. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your kind attention. That's what I have to present to you, and thank you.
Okay, let me introduce now the presentation for a national case on the use of climate services in the framework of implementation of national framework for climate services in Côte d'Ivoire. So we have the honor to have with us the president of the WMO Regional Association 1 for Africa, and he kindly accepted to make himself this presentation. Mr. President, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Daouda Konate. I am the president of the Regional Association 1 Africa for WMO, World Meteorological Organization. I'm going to present to you the case of Côte d'Ivoire in the implementation of the global framework for climate services at national level. This is the outline of the presentation is as follows. We talk about the global objective of the global framework, the assessment of our national framework for 2016 and 2020, and the new action plan for 2021-2025, and the major challenges of our national framework. In the introduction, the objective of the global framework of climate services is to enhance the capability to produce, tailor, communicate, and improve weather, climate, weather, and related environmental information, prediction, and advisory products and services. And this is to support effective climate risk management, including adaptation, strategy, decision-making, and action. Thus, the GFCS also aims to help societies better manage the risk and impacts associated with climate variability and change. In the case, the objective of a framework, national framework, is to provide, communicate, and use on large-scale information and other climate services useful for adaptation to climate change. Also, we elaborate and adopted the former National Framework Climate Services for 2016-2020, and as implemented the action plan. This national framework was being aligned to the National Development Plan for the government 2016-2020 for our government in Côte d'Ivoire. In 2021, the National Meteorological Services in Côte d'Ivoire make an assessment of this national framework of 2016 and 2020. And we elaborate the new national framework for 2021-2025. And the new national framework is also aligned to the National Development Plan of Cote d'Ivoire, the government of Cote d'Ivoire. I will pass the all objective of the global framework. I already told about that. So here we held a workshop to make the assessment of the former national framework. This is the good photo of the work of the workshop we held in Abidjan, and we elaborate a document, a new national framework of climate services in our country. At the assessment of the national framework, the actors of 5 sectors: agriculture, food security, health, disaster reduction, water resources, and energy, assess the action plan over the period 2026-2020 and express the new need which generally relate to deficiency gaps. The gaps is as follows: the enhancement of partnership between the National Medical Services Service and the institution to facilitate access and acquisition of hydromedical data, to formalize the working group on climate services within the country, to make the inventory of the sectorial needs and product to be developed for each sector of activity. And we use of rural media for the dissemination of climate services to agriculture, to the community. When we assess the former national framework, we have a non-existence of text governing the national framework for climate services, the low mobilization of financial resources, and the poor consideration of gender in operational action in the during the implementation. Also, we have a poor knowledge of usefulness of climate services in developing activities, the problem of integrated climate services into sector, local, and national program, and weakness of the information production system by the National Medical Services. And finally, weak fund allocated to research. Now, I'm going to present during the implementation of the national framework, we have some projects which is funded by our partners, and the action plan. This is the action plan we elaborated to have this project. The first project we have from the national framework, the action plan, is the modernization of the National Medical Service in Cote d'Ivoire. And the objective is to strengthen, modernize, and bring international standards, all meteorological observations for infrastructure, and climate information system in Cote d'Ivoire, in SODEXAM. The budget of this project is around $32 million. This is already funded by the African Development, France Development Agency, and the government of Cote d'Ivoire. The second project of cost-cutting project is integrated flood and drought management and early warning and climate change adaptation into the water basin program. The budget of this program, this project, is around $8 million, and this budget is funded by WMO, Adaptation Fund, and Global Water Partnership. For agricultural sectors, we have several projects which come from the action plan. The ClimDev, Project ClimDev, to improve and contribute to the resilience and population flow access to climate information for a better integrated of climate change in national and sectoral development policies. The budget is around $500,000. Is funded by African Development Bank. The second project is a project for cashew in the producer for cashew in Cote d'Ivoire. And the project is funded by the National Interprofessional Fund for Agriculture Research and Advice. This project is ongoing also. We have another project, the Facility Adapt Action, which is the consultancy to make inventory and the institutional and regulatory, economic and operational basis, which enable the National Medical Services to strengthen its strategy for development and agro-meteorological services. This project is funded by AFD, France Development Bank, France Development Agencies, and the budget is around for $346,000. For the sector of disaster reduction, we have a project on urban sanitation and resilience project with a budget of $16 million funded by World Bank also. This project is also ongoing implemented in the Abidjan area. Now, for the new framework, a national framework, the update of action plan of the national framework for climate services for the period 2021-2025 is intended as an invitation to take up major challenges. In view of the analysis of the activities carried out, initiated, and the opinion of the priority sectors, 4 major challenges have been identified as barriers to achieve the objective of the vision of the implementation of the National Action Plan. The one challenge is the institutional organization. How to organize the national framework in link with the other institutional institute. The government will have to put in place a new legislative, political, and development mechanism. This legislative mechanism should be analyzed and adopted, and the mechanism should be aligned to National Development Plan, the new National Development Plan of Cote d'Ivoire 2021-2025. Another challenge is at level of provision of climate services. Here, as you're right, we produce the reports of the action plan and the climate state of Cote d'Ivoire, 2020 climate state, a report of climate state on Cote d'Ivoire. Where dependent economic sectors such as agriculture, health, disaster risk management, water resources, and energy production are more threatened than other sectors and therefore need more real-time available climate services. Another challenge is the co-production of climate services with the main users is a guarantee of better integration into the main activities. We are also challenging in terms of research, in terms of funding. In terms of funding, we have in the action plan, we have some objective of funding. We request to implement the new climate framework. In agriculture, we need $9 million to complete the implementation of a new framework. For disaster risk reduction is $3 million. For health sectors is the budget I raised here is coming from a workshop with different sectors. They give us their needs. So we put in budget to be aligned with the need of the sectors of agriculture, disaster, health. All the actors is around the table and they give their need and the budget. For water resources, energy, tourism, cost cutting also need general all sectors. In conclusion, Côte d'Ivoire set up a national framework climate services with stakeholders in 5 priority sectors were informed on how climate services are taken into account their needs and activities. For a better and functioning of the framework, an evaluation and assessment is applied every 5 years in order to integrate the concern of the actors. This assessment consists of carrying out a survey of main users of climate services to collect the gaps observed in the implementation of a past framework and to express the new needs. Based on this need, on the identified priority action, what remains is to enforce the process which depend both on national authorities and international fund providers. Thank you very much.
Good. Okay, so we are done with the 4 presentations. As you may remember, we started with a presentation on geospatial tools from our colleagues in Brazil, with the objective to share experience and facilitate interregional transfer of tools and methods. The second presentation highlighted the climate trends and risk across Africa, and you had the opportunity to see the temperature trends with a major signal over North Africa, where we actually have over the past 20, 30 years, about 4 degree plus 4 degree warming rate per century. So in the State of Climate report for 2020 for Africa, a major information from temperature is indicating that North Africa is the part of the continent which is warming very quickly, with up to 4 degrees as warming rate per century. The second parameter called precipitation highlighted multi-decadal variability in the distribution of precipitation across the continent. But we found a clear trend on extremes, temperature extremes on one hand, and precipitation extreme on the other. And we identify from the assessment of precipitation data that up to 40% of the African land masses in 2020 was hit by heavy rainfall. And this signal has been shown from the early 80s to 2020, with about 2% of land masses hit by heavy rain in the early 80s, and up to 40% of land masses hit by heavy rain in 2020. This is highlighted later on the number of extreme events, but by type, where you could see that over the past 20 or so more years, Africa had as major extreme event floods, but as major impact drought across the continent. We end up with the third presentation highlighting available products that we generate, watches, and even warnings. But as you probably noted in the presentation, the use of this information is a big problem. And at the continental level, ACMAD has embarked in a program with the African Union Commission to have a continental advisory center based at ACMAD, interacting with the Situation Room in Addis Ababa to facilitate communication of high impact weather information across Africa. We had the presentation on the implementation of the National Framework for Climate Services in Côte d'Ivoire, which highlighted a set of products and projects that Côte d'Ivoire is implementing on different sectors of the national framework. It also highlighted the gaps in the implementation of the first phase of this framework at the national level, and shed some light on the institutional and legal reforms that at the country level will need to better implement the upcoming phases of this framework in different African countries. So we will write a short report of this site event to be shared with all the African communities as practices that can be emulated in different countries to accelerate the implementation of the global framework for climate services in Africa and support our national development programs. We thank you all for listening to us, attending physically here in Glasgow, and all those who are with us through the web. Thank you, and we will be happy to respond to your questions, either those which may have been asked in the chat or even after the site event. You can contact us through the contact link that you have in the proposal, in the presentations. Thank you very much. And we have been happy to be with you for this half an hour. And then what? Huh? And yeah, we thank the South African pavilion, which is actually hosting us here. And I should mention that it's a good example of how different African countries can come together and run site events at COPs in the interest of all Africa. Thank you very much, and have a good day.